right, it looks like Le'Veon Bell, he's enjoying his little vacation, his little holdout. Le'Veon Bell not missing a beat, at least in terms of the fun. As there are reports, TMZ actually bringing this to us. Le'Veon Bell hits Miami club during Steelers holdouts. Le'Veon Bell enjoying himself, to say the least. This is another episode of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I am your host, Mike Asti, and it's going to be all Steelers talk today. This is a Steelers primed program. It's Steelers coverage during the early fall. The weather's finally cooperating. I know last when I talked to you, we were still dealing with the balmy weather, and the weather wasn't really being consistent for what you'd figure for this time of year. The Steelers weren't consistent for what they normally do against the Cleveland Browns either. So some more inconsistency around Pittsburgh. I was on a trek driving in the torrential downpour of rain, so I was listening mostly to the game on the radio. Bill Hillgrove and his silky smooth voice stopped off periodically to watch, but it wasn't what you'd normally figure from the Steelers over the Browns, as it's basically the Pittsburgh Steelers kissed their sister. The Steelers kissed their sister and ended up with a tie. Yeah. Kind of leaves a disgusting taste in your mouth, doesn't it there? It wasn't a loss, and it could have been. In fact, it should have been, and really, from how Mike Tomlin handled his press conference today, as I was there. I covered the Mike Tomlin press conference earlier today here on Steelers Tuesday, and he handled it pretty much as if they lost, kind of how he sent the message to his team, making no excuses, saying they should have played better. Many aspects of the game they could have played better. They played well at times, but of course, no one can deny when you play like that, when you turn it over 6 times, 6 turnovers, the 4 interceptions by Ben and the 2 fumbles, it's not going to be surprising if you don't come up with the victory, and a tie isn't a loss. It's not in the L column, but it's not coming up with a victory either. Oddly enough, though, it was the best start to the season. This is now the best start to the season for the Cleveland Browns, mind you, since 2004. Let that sink in and soak in for a bit there. This is the best start for the Cleveland Browns since 2004, meaning it's the first time they started the season without a loss in 2004, I'd assume. I don't believe there was a tie there mixed in. They didn't lose their first game, and we know last year they lost all of their games, going 0-16. That first 0-16 season in the NFL since the Detroit Lions did it back in 2008. But they don't start with a loss, so a tie for them was almost like a win based on what they've done recently, except for the fact that they also should have won the game for a normal NFL team. When a team hands you 6 turnovers, when they miss a field goal with one of the clutchest kickers in the league in overtime, and when there were numerous penalties, 12 penalties for, I believe, over 160-some yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Yeah, got that for you. Yeah, 12 penalties over 160-some yards for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right there, you're kind of sending the advantage and almost gift wrapping the victory to Cleveland, but they found a way to Cleveland things, and Cleveland is always going to be Cleveland, and the Browns don't come up with the win either. Neither do the Steelers. Steelers and Browns kiss their sisters. Week 1 goes to a 0-0-1 column for the Pittsburgh Steelers with a tie in that column, and the Steelers now will face off against the Kansas City Chiefs. They come home, first home game of the season against Mahomes, who had a great game to start things off now. The prohibited starter, as Alex Smith, is gone and is in D.C. The Chiefs getting a victory over the Los Angeles, almost caught myself and said San Diego there, but Los Angeles Chargers and Phillip Rivers and company, who many thought would do very well this year. They lose their first game. Chargers get a division win, so they're already riding high. The Steelers fail to get a division win to open up their season, or the Chiefs get a division win to open up their year. So they get one. They're 1-0. The Steelers 0-1 with a tie. And, well, as I was saying, I was at the Mike Tomlin press conference earlier today, and Tomlin did not make any excuses. Mike Tomlin never really makes excuses, and he gets heavily criticized throughout his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's won a championship. He's been to another one. There's been a myriad of playoff appearances. Last year actually won the most games he's ever had in a single season, but there's been playoff failures. There's been times where many fans would argue they should have won more. They should have went further in the playoffs, especially with all the talent they have. And when you have the most talent in the league, at least on paper, you would figure to at least get beyond the divisional round. Against a team that hadn't been there in a while, the Steelers' defense squanders that. They don't advance even to the AFC title game last year. So underachieving what some fans would expect. But the one thing nobody can criticize Mike Tomlin, or at least nobody can criticize him and be of a sound mind and be fair, like I know the Pittsburgh fan base always loves to be fair, is the fact that he always tells it like it is. He will not make excuses. He'll tell it like it is. And he did that today. To open up his press conference, he was very blunt on the no excuses, handling it like a loss, the team needing to play better. Right away, from the jump, giving us that information that, hey, guys, I know, it's like a loss to me too. We got to play better. No excuses. Mike Tomlin's press conference, once again, it was just no excuses, play better, move on to the next one. Not going to dwell on it either. But you got to give him credit for always being blunt, never afraid to shy away from criticism, and always at least telling it like it is.
I think he's used to that. I think he gets better with youth. I think that was one of the things that was attractive about him. I know it was that sophomore year, I think, when he scored all those touchdowns. I mean, he likes to carry the football. He warms up to it.
Again, no excuses, handling it like a loss, need to play better. There were some positives from the game for sure, and we'll get to those in a moment. But you tie a winless team, you give up 6 turnovers in that game, you miss a kick in overtime, and Boswell's getting paid. Talk about getting paid. We opened up the show with Le'Veon Bell having fun there during his holdout, still not reporting. And that's another bomb to kind of drop here from the Mike Tomlin press conference. Now, I opened up by saying Le'Veon Bell's enjoying himself with a holdout there. He's having fun. TMZ reporting he's going to Miami nightclubs. So it's not like he's necessarily getting his body in shape and practicing, which I'm sure some Steeler fans would love to see him. But there's been no communication at all. Mike Tomlin has said it. No communication. He has not heard from Le'Veon Bell. He has not heard from Le'Veon Bell's camp. He has had no information. Nothing has come across his desk in terms of anybody else with the Steelers organization, whether it be a player with the Steelers, a coach with the Steelers, a member of their communications department, the PR department. No one. The secretary down there at the Steelers facility, the chef that makes the fabulous cookies down there, as I can give him some dap. Tremendous cookies again from the Steelers cafeteria. According to Mike Tomlin, and he also tells us, he told us in the media that he would not lie to us. Take that with a grain of salt, but he really doesn't necessarily. He'll walk the fine line like coaches do. He'll sometimes keep things from you. I can't say that maybe he's not keeping this from us, but mostly he'll take responsibility, and for the most part, he won't just blatantly make something up. Now, he may deny something. He may say it's the media's fault when it really isn't, and he may blame something that shouldn't be blamed, or he may go ignore a question because it's social media. He'll do the coach speak, but he usually doesn't do the full-on Bill Belichick where he just will blatantly fabricate. And he claims that he wouldn't lie, so we got to take it for what it is, but he also dropped the bomb that no communication has been had between Mike Tomlin, anybody with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Le'Veon Bell or anybody in Le'Veon Bell's camp. So, Steeler fans, we're sitting here Tuesday of another Steelers week. Mike Tomlin press conference just a couple hours earlier from this program, and we all enjoyed listening to Tomlin. Steelers are getting ready for the next game. They're moving on to Kansas City. They're preparing for a team with a victory already and leading in their division, but they're doing so without Le'Veon Bell. It is business as usual. It is continuing operations. It is standard is the standard. It is move on to the next one. It is on to Kansas City, to steal in the page from Bill Belichick's book, without Le'Veon Bell. And I touched on this in my first episode here with Pittsburgh Sports Live. Again, this is Mic Drop, second episode of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. You want to make sure to check out our YouTube channel, hit subscribe when you do, and check out our websites all through the family of sightseer, the family of the media empire that we're building, and of course, the other shows and the other hosts and all of our content there that we're putting out for the people. Take that sarcastic or not. But no communication. Steelers, Mike Tomlin, heard nothing from Le'Veon Bell in his camp. And I touched on last week, I did say then that I could understand both sides, but really, honestly, as you keep going and more contracts are handed out, I hate to do this, Steeler fans. I know some fans are really going to get on me for this. I'm siding more and more with Le'Veon Bell as we go. Because it's not, I got an argument with this actually with somebody I was hanging out with over the weekend in terms of a lot of Steeler fans see the overall salary number. They see the dollar figure. They see the team offered him a 5-year contract. They see his age. They see the suspensions and the injuries. But a lot of running backs have got hurt. Todd Gurley, for example, who I brought up last week, has injury issues in the past. James Conner, who came in for the Steelers and did very, very well, and we'll also get to him in a minute, he had injury issues in the past, whether it be in college or what was really his rookie season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, marred by injuries. So injuries are always going to be the case for a running back, and everybody understands the running back shelf life is shorter than, say, a wide receiver or a quarterback or even some other positions, especially elite positions in the league. I get it. I could maybe see if the Steelers were trying to talk about a shorter-term deal and they didn't want to go 5 years, but they offered a deal that was long-term and what Le'Veon Bell won. So they're okay with going long-term despite his age. They were willing to go 5 years. They offered him a 5-year deal. What they didn't offer him, and I got to stress this enough, it's all about the guaranteed money. I wish I had the emoji with me, but instead I don't. I can do it in real motion. It is all about the guaranteed money. It is all about the guaranteed money. Le'Veon Bell was offered $10 million guaranteed through that contract. So if he goes and signs that deal, it's a 5-year deal, wonderful. Tons of millions of dollars. You can save it, put it in the bank, get some annuities, invest that, some mutual funds. You're sitting pretty. And no, he shouldn't blow it all, especially what he had in the franchise tag last year. It would be idiotic to blow through all that money, but we've seen that in the past with athletes and other celebrities who just go through all their cash. Mike Tyson was broke at one point, bought a tiger and tattooed his face and bought 6 different mansions. It could happen if you're stupid with your money, and I'm not saying Le'Veon Bell's going to be, but regardless of whether you blow your money or not, you should have enough to live off of. Of course, I get that. But if you get hurt in week 6 and now you have a career-ending injury and you're done for the rest of your career, or nobody else wants you, or the team releases you because they're sick of your you-know-what, or you somehow are not as good as you once were, and then you lose favor and then you get cut, whether it be in an off-season or whenever, you don't get anything but the guaranteed money. That's why the NFL is different than all the other pro sports. It's not like Major League Baseball. It's not like the NBA. It's not like other sports where your contract can be your contract. There's signing bonuses. There are some other monies and incentives, of course, and there's ways to get around money. But it's all about the guaranteed money. The guaranteed money is what Le'Veon Bell wants. He wants the guaranteed money. Todd Gurley was offered $44 million guaranteed. Le'Veon Bell, 10. I mean, it's case closed. I understand Gurley's a little bit younger, not as many injury concerns, and didn't have the whole smoking weed in a car issue of a few years ago that Le'Veon Bell has had and other off-the-field infractions. But a player is going to want to get his money for his production on the field. And again, $10 million guaranteed to 44. He's never going to be convinced that he's 4 times less valuable, at least financially, for guaranteed money than a Todd Gurley. And we know the money that Aaron Rodgers, $100 million, Kirk Cousins, I believe it's $84, maybe $86 million, that they're getting. Their quarterbacks is a different situation, but still Aaron Donald at $90 million. It's a defensive player. They're setting the bar for positions that never used to get that much money. There's so much guaranteed money flying around the NFL. Quarterbacks never used to get $80+ million guaranteed, even as elite they are, like an Aaron Rodgers. And Le'Veon Bell, $10 million guaranteed offer. Clearly, if I'm him, I'm thinking the Steelers are trying to penalize me for my past issues. And he's never going to take that lying down. And then you go into the whole issue of the players turning on him. The players turning on him before the week. And even during the game, you saw some shade thrown up there by Le'Veon Bell with some tweets and little emojis himself and claims it wasn't shade. But The players always, and I had tweeted this during the whole offseason, that I wasn't going to take much of what the players said because, hey, they're not going to bash him. He's a teammate of theirs. They want him back, and they're not going to let it get out of hand. Well, they kind of did. You saw offensive linemen, different players in the team. They kind of did turn on Le'Veon Bell once he missed week 1. And I also touched on in my first episode that I can understand him missing week 1 because, well, he doesn't want to keep putting all this tread on the tires if he knows the two sides, the Steelers and him, are parting ways at the end of the year. He wants to preserve himself more for his future and his next contract. Wants to be as valuable as he can, and being killed in his car crash wouldn't really help that on every play of an NFL season and every carry that he may get. So I get that. I truly do. But they turned on him figuring that I guess they were lied to and they didn't know that he was gonna miss a game. Honestly, I saw a lot of people kind of defending them. I'm not saying they're trying to get in Le'Veon Bell's money, but they still need to stay away from his money in his wallet, in his pocketbook. Okay? Le'Veon Bell, like any of them in the past, Antonio Brown talked about holding out before he got his deal. You don't want to say something about an athlete until you eventually realize you're never going to be in that situation, and there's no pro athlete who can guarantee that. You want to maximize your money. It's capitalism at its finest. You want to maximize your money while you can, while you have the market value. That's what Le'Veon Bell's doing. So I get a lot of flack for this, and I'll continue to do so. I have no problem kind of siding with Le'Veon Bell here, or at the very least, empathizing and understanding Le'Veon Bell's perspective, maybe even more than his teammates. Because anyone says that he lied to them and didn't say he was going to miss a game, you just haven't been paying attention. Le'Veon Bell's been tweeting up a storm and telling the media for years now, even before last year's franchise tag fiasco, that if you franchise tag me again, if you do it 2 years in a row, if you don't give me my money, if you don't give me a fair deal in comparison to other running backs, and after that, the Gurley money, he tweeted a little quote tweet talking about it. If you give Gurley 44 guaranteed and me 10 guaranteed, I'm not going to play for you. He made it clear. So I don't know if they were all trying to call his bluff or what, but Le'Veon Bell made it clear, and he basically stuck to his guns. So at the very least, you got to give him respect for that. He stuck to his guns, and he wasn't there. And as I said, no one with the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, nobody at all has talked to Le'Veon Bell or anybody in his camp. We're now Tuesday. We already had the Mike Tomlin press conference. There's going to be obviously more practices. 1 p.m. on Sunday, kickoff against the Chiefs. It's a game they need to win now after going 0-1 with the tie and kissing your sister in week 1 against the Browns. And again, no Le'Veon Bell. No Le'Veon Bell at all. Now, to pivot, though, from one running back who is not there to one running back who is, and that is James Conner. Now, James Conner had a great game. Okay, to be fair, James Conner had a great game. Look at his numbers here. I'm going to throw them up there for you. James Conner, what was it? 135, a couple touchdowns, some dubs there. James Conner, great game. Okay, check out the stats. James Conner, first NFL touchdown. I know he got some hate for the celebration with the offensive linemen, but they were so excited for him. I mean, we all know the story. Came back, fought, conquered cancer. Not only able to get drafted by the Steelers, his really hometown team, playing college at Pitt and being from the Erie area. Steeler fan, now a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the holdout and Le'Veon Bell not being there, it's indirectly benefiting James Conner. He's not saying anything because he's getting more carries, and he's now the featured back, and he's now the number one guy. And I did get some hate and some venom there on Twitter after last week's episode, where I kind of said that regardless of what's going on with Le'Veon Bell, that anyone out there saying the Steelers are perfectly fine without Le'Veon Bell in the future, and that James Conner would take right over and become the new featured back and a new superstar, and you throw him on your fantasy team, and he's going to be another elite running back in this league, and he's going to be the next great thing, the next best thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Franco Harris, Rocky Bleier, Jerome Bettis, Le'Veon Bell, James Conner. People were saying that. No big deal. They were mad at Le'Veon Bell, and I could see that. And then just James Conner, he's going to be a beast. And I kept saying it wasn't enough evidence. Yes, there was a couple great preseason games. He played solid in the preseason, but it wasn't enough evidence to say that. Great offseason, great workout. Looked like he trimmed some fat and in a little bit better shape, muscular build now for James Conner. I knew what he did at Pitt, but I didn't feel there was enough evidence to warrant saying that. I kind of accused the Pittsburgh fan of not having any reason to say it, but hoping it into existence and wishing it into existence, and basically saying that this was going to happen for James Conner because they wanted it to. That for 1 or 2 preseason games or 3 preseason games, as great as anybody would play, who's a rookie, really, and never had done it yet in the NFL level, you wouldn't say that about anybody else. You wouldn't say that about Ridley or anyone else. You would, wait and see approach and see what happened. But with James Conner, it was guaranteed, surefire, get rid of Bell, doesn't matter, he'll replace Bell, no problem. Not even understanding how great and overall of an athlete Bell is and how much he does for the defense having to scheme against him and for what he does as a runner on the ground with his yards and what he does also as a wide receiver. He really was the third receiver on the Steelers team, third leading receiver, at least in terms of yards for the Steelers, which is why he wanted to have that as part of his franchise tag, and it's a story for another day. But that there was no evidence. And I'll put up the numbers again. Look at him, James Conner. Great game. James Conner played well. Although, he also was part of why they didn't win. I mean, let's be real and call a spade a spade. There was a fumble for James Conner. There was one of the 6 turnovers. That was absolutely part of it late in that game. Could have been points for the Steelers down there in the goal line territory. James Conner lays it on the ground. And I guarantee you, Mike Tomlin told him right away, and he told us here, he told us in the media, told us at the press conference, that he tells everybody from the first day he looks them in the eyes when they join the roster or even trying to be on the roster, if you're a running back, if you even want to be a back, take care of the football. Pats him on the back and says, take care of the football. James Conner did not take care of the football. But again, I got to give him his love. He kind of proved me wrong briefly. I'm not going to admit that yet. He played well. If he does that again, certainly he can be serviceable in terms of replacing Le'Veon Bell. I don't necessarily know if I would say he's ever going to be as good as Le'Veon Bell. That's how great of a talent Le'Veon Bell was. He was the best running back in football overall, one of the best receivers really in football. He was a Marshall Faulk-type back, doing it all and really revolutionary for this time period after there had been so long for running backs to really be like that in the NFL, or at least do it at that high of a level and excel at both aspects of the game. Le'Veon Bell did that, and James Conner did it on Sunday. He had the yards on the ground, he had the carries, he had the workload, he had the touchdowns, got through the whole drive, and had some receiving yards as well. So James Conner, again, he played very, very well. I can't get away from that. But there's one other thing with James Conner that I have to get to. To be fair, and I'm a fair kind of guy, equal opportunity criticizer, not a hater, equal opportunity criticizer if it's just cause, and I feel like it is a little bit here. Not only am I waiting and seeing, and I need more evidence to say that he's really going to take over for Le'Veon Bell next year and year after, and that he can handle an entire full season of 400-plus carries like Bell has been able to produce for you, as well as, say, another 40, 50 touches as receptions and over 1,000, if not 1,200 yards on the ground, maybe over 300 to 400 to 500 yards receiving, 10 total touchdowns, if not more than that. And that's kind of even being generous for some years Le'Veon Bell has had when he's played a full season, or at least projecting what a full season would be for Le'Veon Bell. And to be fair, I got to see more than 1 week of regular season football against the top defense and more than just the Cleveland Browns, who were a winless team a season ago, even though they're obviously a little better than they were in some parts of the game. I need to see more than 1 week to say Le'Veon Bell is gone, forget him, we don't care, and James Conner's the savior, and he's all holy, and he's going to be the next best thing, and get him on the T-shirt, and he's the guy that's going to carry the Steelers into the promised land on his back. I need more. However, Mike Tomlin apparently has, there were questions in this vein at his press conference, and some colleagues of mine kind of did allude to the fact that, hey, can James Conner handle this workload? Will we see more of Ridley? Was it because of the complexion of the game why we didn't see more of him in week 1? And do you believe James Conner can handle 30-plus carries every single week, basically?
But we'll quickly transition as we get ready to move on to this next one. I think when I look back at the performance, much like I said after the game, I'm appreciative of a lot of the efforts. There were things in the game that were good. There were signs. I think he's used to that. I think he gets better with youth. I think that was one of the things that was attractive about him. I know it was that sophomore year, I think, when he scored all those touchdowns. He likes to carry the football. He warms up to it.
think it was in one of those two clips there. Got a few clips there, cut them up after the Steelers practice, but one of those two clips had it, and it was clear that he wants James Conner to handle more workload in terms of he sees no problem. He knows what he did at Pitt, knows what he did next door to the facility, knows what he can handle, and he feels like James Conner, I'll give it to you. It was in the clips, but I'll give it to you. He feels James Conner gets better the more carries he has. And he gets better as the game progresses and his workload increases. He gets better. So if that's the case, you're going to see more carries from James Conner, especially as we know, Le'Veon Bell having fun at nightclubs in Miami, per the TMZ report, and not with the Steelers. So Mike Tomlin was only going to focus on who is there, regardless of your opinions, and you can love Le'Veon Bell, you can hate Le'Veon Bell, you can be on his side or not, and I touched on why I do kind of empathize with Le'Veon Bell, wanting his market value and the team not really offering it at least, and him sticking to his guns, and they're just really called his bluff, and then he stayed true to himself. I guess I can respect that, but he's not there, so they're moving on, and James Conner is the guy who I would expect, again, 30 more carries. I would expect the same type of production from James Conner, or at least the same type of game from him in terms of at least what they're going to expect. They're going to hope a similar game from James Conner. But what I want to make clear, again, we cannot judge whether I was correct or not on my prediction of James Conner not filling in for Le'Veon Bell and forget Le'Veon Bell and James Conner is the new superstar and he can dominate for a full season and step right in for Le'Veon Bell until we see this for a full season, or at least I'll give you week 10. Get back to me in week 10. Give me to week 10. If James Conner's been the guy all through week 10 and Le'Veon Bell hasn't been there, and I pick week 10 because right after that's when Le'Veon Bell has to report, and he will report then in order to count this year as a season. Otherwise, this year would not count as a year he could then say was a year for him, and then he wouldn't be a free agent. So he's going to be back week 11 at the latest. And if James Conner up until all through week 10 has 100-plus yards, dominating, doing it on the ground and through the air, I'll be right there to say, as touchdown after touchdown, that I was wrong, and clearly so far at least he's proving he can do it full year and at least be serviceable in replace of Bell, even if he's not the guy. But I'm still skeptical and believe Bell is a much better overall player, much better overall athlete. Defense has to scheme a lot more against him, and I'd much rather have Le'Veon Bell than James Conner, at least on the football field. Maybe not to deal with everything else. I love the James Conner story, but at least on the football field. And James Conner, he's certainly someone the Steelers fans are rooting for, so much so that I noticed one other thing. And then I will touch on one other aspect of the game that I found interesting that also Mike Tomlin touched on in his press conference. Got a little funny, told some jokes, is the fact that James Conner played well in the game. You can't say he didn't. But his fumble, as I alluded to, could have cost the Steelers the game. Now, they didn't lose, but they didn't win either, so it was a tie. So they're going to handle it like a loss, as you heard from Tomlin earlier. So because of that, you got to be fair. And it can't be a situation where we can't criticize James Conner because of what he's been through either. James Conner's fumble cost the Steelers points. Yes, he scored 2 touchdowns, and yes, he put up 135 yards on the ground. But his fumble cost the Steelers points. Let's call a spade and be real and be fair. If that was Le'Veon Bell, you'd pile on him and say he cost the Steelers the game and he got to be better than that. If he's an elite back who wants $40 million on a guaranteed money, he can't fumble it there in that spot. Okay, absolutely. I agree. But if you're going to also argue that James Conner is going to step right in for Bell, be the new guy, no problem at all. He can carry the workload of 400-plus carries, dominate 1,200-plus yards on the ground, 500-plus yards as a receiver, be almost an MVP candidate, and it's no big deal, and you're that confident in that, then when he has those great games with 2 touchdowns and all those yards, 100-plus, he can't include a fumble that cost the team points in a game they don't win. That's not going to look good on James Conner. Wasn't really brought up by Tomlin, and he made some other criticisms of some others, like Bud Dupree and some defensive players that need to be better. But nothing of James Conner, the fan base number one. You kind of left James Conner alone on Twitter. I tweeted this. I got some minor reaction, but more reaction to some of my other tweets that are more positive. You guys love the positivity. Sorry to break it to you. I'm going to be truthful and give you what's real. James Conner's fumble cost the team points and could have been part of what cost them that game. If that was Bell, if that was really any of their back, you'd be jumping all over them. But because you love James Conner so much with the cancer story and being a Pitt guy and then being drafted higher than you would expect and bucking the experts' predictions and then becoming a Steeler and playing so well in his first start in place of Bell, who all Steeler fans hate so much, and he doesn't do much to try to alleviate that, then I get it. But we can't have a situation where if you criticize James Conner, you're all of a sudden against cancer, you're all of a sudden evil, and you're all of a sudden being unfair. What's unfair is not treating him like everybody else. He needs to understand that. I'm sure he does. Everybody else needs to understand it. I'm sure they do, at least in terms of the Steelers. But the fan base needs to agree and understand it as well. James Conner lays an egg on the ground and almost cost the team a loss. It's fair to criticize that, as well as it's fair to give him his dap and his just due when he's earned it and played so well as he did. Now, round things out here, I do want to get to, well, it wasn't funny. It was part of why the Steelers didn't win the game, and that was the 12 penalties for over 160 yards, or 116 yards, 12 penalties for 116 yards for the exact number of penalties and yards. I have that right in front of me. So I was over-projecting a bit there, but 12 penalties, 116 yards, 11 for 87 on the Browns, so the Steelers still had more than Cleveland. Cleveland was highly penalized too, and it was week one, some new rules, so Mike Tomlin, like all coaches, were adjusting to new rules in the league, and you're looking at body-to-body and helmet-to-helmet hits and shoulder-to-shoulder and new style of tackling that's even further being implemented this year from just the offseason. But it felt like this was where Tomlin was angry. This felt like where Tomlin was telling some jokes, but he was a bit kind of in jest, but also mad and kind of maybe threw some shade at the NFL office, at the referees, maybe, and he wouldn't do that directly. He doesn't want to get fined. But even maybe those who were doing reviews or really those at the top, a part of these rule changes and a part of what led to 12 penalties, 116 yards, some of those key calls late in the game, the shoulder-to-shoulder hit. There was a lot of penalties against the Steelers that were critical. And they're not going to make excuses, of course, but when they asked about it, when a colleague of mine asked him, when we asked him about the penalties, simply ask New York. And that's referring to asking those at the top, asking those, the powers that be, asking the NFL offices. Okay, ask New York. And then I won't do their job for them. That was said multiple times. Mike Tomlin, when asked about the penalties in his week one game against the Cleveland Browns, and some controversial calls to say the very least, ask New York, and I won't do their job for them. Ask New York, and I won't do their job for them. That was Mike Tomlin on the penalties from his week one game against Cleveland, and those that are making those decisions, those rule authorities, the powers that be, that Tomlin has to be, he's part of those conversations, also has to implement them and teach them to his players through an offseason, and he gets that. But ask New York, and I won't do their job for them. So Mike Tomlin kind of throwing some shade, to say the very least, on those powers that be. Steelers do host Kansas City, 1 p.m. this Sunday. Kickoff there from Heinz Field. We have no idea what the weather's going to be because I touched on in my first episode, and we all know here with Pittsburgh, as I get this great view of Market Square here in our live studios downtown, that could be 70 plus, 80 plus, 90 plus degree again this weekend. I don't know. I think it's going to be a little cooler, but it's been cool like fall kind of this week after being so hot the week before and all the rain, and then we don't know about the week after, and maybe we're finally getting fall. Regardless, they're going to play a game when they won't make excuses because of the weather either. He did reiterate that as well. So I was there in the flesh to see Mike Tomlin, listen to Mike Tomlin, soak in what Mike Tomlin has to say. I remembered from last season, I was there as well all last season, you're going to get what you get out of Mike Tomlin. He's not going to lie that much. He's going to do the coach speak, of course, but he's not going to bold-faced lie to you. He's not going to make excuses. He'll take a game as it is, and he'll always say the standard is the standard. You fill in. You're not going to worry about Le'Veon Bell not being there. It's who is there. The standard of whoever is there for James Conner now to step in for Le'Veon Bell is the standard of Bell's production. James Conner kind of fulfilled it, a little bit lesser, but kind of fulfilled it despite the fumble. So all that's going to be expected again. And they realize how critical the game is, having not won and having it be kind of like a loss, even though it was a tie. And now the criticalness of playing Kansas City, who would then go to 2-0 with a win. But the Chiefs coming in 1-0, a division win under their belt. Heinz Field, 1 p.m. kickoff. Steelers finally get a home game. So the Steelers get a home game here. Second week of the season. They get a home game after starting out the year on the road. Now, I want to remind you, too, as we close the chapters here on another Radio Gold broadcast of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. This was the Tuesday Mike Tomlin press conference edition of the program. A lot of Steelers talk. I said it before. I'll say it again. I'm going to cover whatever's pertinent, whatever is the critical news of the day, of the time, of the week in Pittsburgh sports. And that's what we're all going to do here at Pittsburgh Sports Live and all our affiliates. And if there's major news in the Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm going to tackle it. If there's major news in the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm going to tackle it. If there's major news in the Steelers, I'm going to tackle it. If you had a rivalry or just any news at all in college sports, whether it be Penn State, Pitt, even West Virginia, because I'm a WVU alum, I'm going to tackle it. And I'll even tackle WVU more than the rest of us here because I'm a WVU alum and some others don't necessarily cover that beat or don't have experience. I've covered West Virginia before, so I know that, have connections there. I know that in the flesh. I can give you a lot of information there, and not much for this week other than the fact they won't have a game. That game has been canceled. I don't know if it's going to be postponed. I haven't been able to get that information yet, but that will not happen this Saturday against NC State due to the hurricane and due to the severe weather. Not surprising at all, but the Mountaineers, who are 2-0, big win to start the year against Tennessee, a major conference team, and then just shellacking a Youngstown State, as you should. But a team that's not a Power 5, and Will Grier so far a leading Heisman candidate, I would say. They don't get to test their waters yet again against another Power 5 in NC State. Granted, they're not elite, but West Virginia is favored in the game, but it will not happen. And then we will get you any information about when it will happen, if it will happen, when that does occur. Go to my Twitter at MikeAsti11 for any of that news as well. But that game has been canceled for the weekend due to the weather, so no West Virginia NC State game this weekend. Didn't yet hear about any other college games, but I'm sure there's going to be others. Even further down there, the Carolinas, Florida's supposed to come up here, but I doubt it's going to affect us as much as those locations. Make sure to go to our YouTube channel right here, and when you watch this show, whether it be live, watching archive, watching after the fact, whether you're just checking in, whether the content's evergreen or not, click subscribe. Click subscribe right up there. It's critical. Up there in the button or down there in the button. I don't know where it would be for you guys on your screen, but whether it's your phone, your iPad, your tablet, I'm an Apple guy, so your MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, or you're hooking up to your TV sometimes and really getting to sync up and close up of my beautiful voice and my beautiful face and my golden voice. My voice is beautiful too, but my beautiful face and golden quality voice. Then do that. Subscribe. Makes it easier on us to bring you the amount of content we do here. As we're kicking into full gears now with Pittsburgh Sports Live, go to our websites, visit our websites, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, a potential future endeavor coming soon as well. And, of course, all our social medias. You can find me at MikeAsti11 on Twitter, and that is where you'd find this show and all our content linked up, retweeted, thrown at you on the social media circuit. Even us on Facebook or wherever. Those accounts have Facebooks attached, but on Twitter, social media, mainly on the YouTube, on the Pittsburgh Sports Live YouTube channel, and make sure to click subscribe. But my show will give you everything in Pittsburgh sports and beyond, all through the market, whether it be college or the pro or whatever really the news of the day or the week is. Right now, that is all Pittsburgh Steelers. That was all the Mike Tomlin press conference. I was there in person, so that gave you some inside information to those of you who could not listen or watch on your own. You give it to us here. You get it here at Pittsburgh Sports Live. Once again, live up here on top of an undisclosed location, undisclosed building here above Market Square in downtown Pittsburgh. This has been another Radio Gold quality, because you're getting more than just radio, you're getting the whole visual. So Gold quality edition of Mic Drop on Pittsburgh Sports Live, as I'm Mike Asti conquering sports radio one day at a time.